Welcome back to my channel, where we dive into the most effective natural remedies against dementia. Drawing wisdom from Barbara O'Neill's teachings, we will uncover lifestyle choices and holistic methods to keep your brain healthy and thriving. And don't miss our focus on how depression and emotional well-being tie directly to brain health. Let's get started. We're giving away 100 free copies of my best-selling book to our subscribers. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, like this video, and comment why you want to win. Now let's get started. The skull, and with the skeletal system, it's an internal structure causing us to stand upright. But when it comes to the head, system now becomes an external structure. It becomes an external structure because it is now protecting the most delicate and yet the most important organ of the body. But when you have a look at the head, you will see 7 avenues of access into the brain. There are 2 ears, there are 2 eyes, there are 2 nostrils, and there is a mouth. Everything we hear or have ever heard, see or have ever seen, everything we smell and everything that goes into our mouth, whether it be food or drink, has an effect on the brain. Our decisions determine our destiny. So how important that we know something about the decision-making part of our brain. This is an area that many people are ignorant. The little book, which I see is up the back in the foyer, it says in there on page 127 that the only hope of better things is the education of the people in right principles. It's a tragic thing today that in Australia, 50% of Australians have, are, or will suffer from some form of mental illness, and 1,700 cases of Alzheimer's is being diagnosed every day in Australia. These figures indicate that many people don't understand their brain, and they don't realize that we have more control over what we do, and even what we say than we think we do. So in this short little time I have with you this morning, I'd like to just open the door a little bit and show you the parts of our brain where we make our decision and what influences them. So we're going to begin by looking at the brain. Now the brain from side on, basically it looks a little bit like this. And there is what's called the limbic system. And the limbic system basically takes up about that part of the brain. And this limbic system is often called the emotional brain. And I think we all know about emotions, and I think we all know that emotions aren't a very good guide because they go up and down like the wind. But there's another part of our brain that God designed to actually control that limbic system, that emotional part of the brain. So to do this, brain from top down. From top down, you will have a look at the brain like this, and in the front part of the brain, and we're going to call this the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. And I think the way you're looking at is, so in the right part of the brain, you could call that the I want section that's down there. Sorry, not the I want, the I won't. Now this is a very important part of the brain. Where it's very important is, no, I won't have that cigarette. No, I won't have that big state. And on the left part of the brain is the I will. And the I will part of the brain is also very important because I will get out of bed and exercise this morning. I will go to bed early. Decisions that are helpful for my body. So you've got the I won't and you've got the I will. And we need a little bit of balance in there, and that's where we come to. Right in the center is the I want part of it, the brain. As I reflect on the structure of our bodies, I'm reminded of how vital it is to protect the most delicate organ, our brain. While we often focus on external health, true cognitive well-being requires daily nurturing. One overlooked aspect is depression, a silent contributor that can lead to the onset of dementia over time. The stress and biochemical imbalances associated with chronic depression have far-reaching effects on brain cells, chronic gradually affecting memory and decision-making capabilities. This is why it's so important to adopt habits that uplift and heal both mind and body. Simple practices like getting enough rest, maintaining a balanced diet rich in brain, Boosting nutrients and engaging in regular physical activity can work wonders, social connections, and stress. Reducing activities like mindfulness and deep breathing exercises also help reinforce the brain's resilience. By being proactive about mental wellness, we create a foundation for long-term cognitive health. Depression, a way out. Every chapter starts with someone else's story showing how they conquered depression. Using some of the simple principles I'm showing you now, and some of the simple principles I've been showing you all week, dehydration affects depression. Late nights, depression affect depression. So you can see what we're doing this morning. We're pulling those 8 physical laws we looked at this week, and we're pulling the 8 mental laws together. We should always have our detective hat on. You know, recently I consulted a private detective and I said to him, "Oh, so am I." I love the detective work of discovering why someone has a certain condition. It's Newton's third, an equal and an opposite reaction. Proverbs 26:2 states that the curse causeless shall not come. You know what that means? No problem happens without a cause. There is always a reason. In fact, defy basic science. So we should always be looking at the cause of a problem. And sometimes the problem for depression could be too much coffee. Dehydration. Best place to start. When someone comes to me wanting help with depression, know that's what I do? I said start drinking more water. Your coffee. You could stop your coffee straight away. A clear indication that it's not doing you any good. I say start going to bed early. Start limiting your technology time. Start seriously assessing what you're watching and the effect it's having on your brain. Start exercising. But I don't feel like exercising. Yes, emotional brain. But what do you want? I want to feel good. I want to conquer my depression. So I will go and exercise. Can you see how that all threads into each other? The second law is the law of choice. And the law of choice, as you can see, in that I want the frontal lobe part of the brain. Your guardian. Where your goals are, this is what you feel like doing. But this is what you want. So that influences your decisions. And when you're well slept, well exercised, well fed, brain is a lot stronger. But we've got something else coming here. And that's habit. You've heard of habit? Habit can be our best friends or our worst enemies. You know, throughout my practice, I've witnessed how interconnected our mental state is with our physical health. Depression isn't just an emotional state. It impacts the whole body, can accelerate cognitive decline, ultimately contributing to dementia. The stress response triggered by depression affects hormones, neurotransmitters, weakening neural connections. Over time, but the beauty of natural remedies lies in their simplicity and accessibility. From hydration and exercise to adopting a mindful diet, these practices build resilience against both depression and potential cognitive impairment. Hydration ensures proper brain function, while exercise boosts mood and increases the production of growth factors that support brain cell health. A diet rich in omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and vitamins fuels brain resilience. Remember, taking charge of your choices, late nights, limiting exposure to technology, and ensuring restorative sleep is essential for brain health. Engaging in practices such as mindfulness, journaling, and connecting with loved ones also supports emotional and cognitive well-being. It's these small that protect and strengthen the mind, fostering an environment where the brain can thrive, stay sharp, and ward off the long-term impacts of depression and dementia. The path to cognitive wellness is built step by step through deliberate health-affirming choices. Do you know whatever you're going through? The Lord has an answer, and often we miss out on the answer because we went to bed too late and we don't hear that morning voice. We have a choice. Forgiveness is a choice. Let me tell you the story of a man who came to us. His name was Doug. I said, no, I didn't. He had prostate cancer. I said to him, sometimes that's all you can say. Oh. I kept moving on because I could see it really irritated him. He heard all the lectures. He heard about the power of forgiveness. He heard about the fact that forgiveness is the only prescription in the entire universe that has the power to break the chemical bonds of hostility, anger, and hate, the chains that bind you to painful past. Forgiveness gives you wings. He heard that in the lecture. I talked to him later. After the lecture, power of forgiveness. Have you forgiven? He yelled at me. All my life. I said, I can understand, but you've got quite a serious illness now, and I believe that for you to heal, you need to forgive your father. You don't understand. He and his voice was rising with fear and trepidation. I pushed it a little bit further. I said, Minute. You don't understand. I backed off. Was getting a little bit volatile in there. I changed the subject. 2 minutes later, me. I've done it. Now his limbic system, his emotional brain said, this. Can you see that? He'd been harboring this. My father yelled at me, he yelled at me, he yelled at me. What's happening? His brain, he was developing a very strong habit pathway of anger towards his father. In fact, the first week I heard him telling other people, other guests, my father yelled at me all my life. Can you see it's getting bigger and bigger? And when in the lecture he heard to forgive. You see, decision or you'll never do it. It's an I want decision. What do I want? Notice what he said. I've done it. All. How could there be? Your emotions, they'll hold you back. You see, the third law of the brain states that your words affect your feelings. So don't wait till you feel like it, or you possibly will never do it. And who would want to hold on to that pain? That's why it's so important to know about your limbic system, to know about your emotional feeling system, and understand that you're guardian. You're all wanting. That's where you make your decisions. In the Bible, we see Jesus in the garden. He's praying, Father, cup pass from me. He knew he was about to be crucified. Notice what he ended it with, though. Father, this. In his humanity, notice what he ended with, nevertheless. Not what I want, but what you want. Express, we've got emotional limbic brains. I often say that our habits are the architects of our future. The brain's limbic system, which is responsible for our emotional responses, plays a big role in this. Unresolved emotional pain can weaken the brain's defenses, making it vulnerable to illnesses and including dementia. Developing healthy routines, whether it's choosing to forgive or pushing ourselves to stay active, rejuvenates the brain. These practices not only aid in emotional balance, but also fortify neural pathways. In essence, what we choose to feed our minds and bodies today determines our mental clarity in the years to come. Fasting. An easy way to do it is to have breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, then have an 18-hour fast through to the next morning, to Misty Mountain Health Retreat, where we make it really easy for you and you do 2 days on vegetable and fruit juices. That's a shocker. It's a shock to the body when the food stops coming. That's one shock. The next shock is finishing every hot shower with a quick cold. Notice I didn't say long cold. I'm kind. That's a shocker. You'll go, but it's going to stimulate your brain to release the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. New brain cells, number 3. Interval training. Running for your life for 30 seconds up hills, then having a break, and then doing it again. Feel like you're dying. So people that have been attending my lectures all week, and I'm sure you've been so excited about this, you've been doing it. Now, new brain cells. Something else can grow. Every time we learn something new, we develop another dendrite. I love memorizing. It's one of my favorite things to do. And every time I learn new verses, another dendrite. If you play the piano and learn new pieces, there are three things that science shows are the most powerful in developing new dendrites. One is learning a new language, learning a musical instrument, and memorizing Bible verses. Because the Word of God is quick, any two-edged sword, piercing even into dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. That's the Word of God. People think I've got a good memory. I really don't. The piano. She didn't start playing yesterday, didn't start memorizing yesterday. It takes a while. How long does it take to really solidify in your brain? Probably about 21 days. I learn a verse a week. If I do any more, it gets all jumbled up and I can't remember anything. So every time you learn something new, another dendrite grows. That one brain cell can develop 70,000 dendrites. I can hardly get my mind around that one. And you know what the research shows? We can be growing new dendrites right up until the day we die. So there are three things we can grow. We can grow new dendrites, and we can even grow new brain cells. God is so good. What about shrink? When you forgive. When you forgive anyone who's ever hurt you in your life, your glial cells are activated to mop up all the thorns, and the pathway to that memory actually shrinks. So it needn't be part of your daily thoughts. That's the good news. So what's the bad news about shrinking? If you don't use your brain cells, you will lose them. I love the story about the 90-year-old man who learned to play the piano and the 92-year-old man who graduated from law school. It's time 7. The last law is the law of diversion, and the law of diversion states that when something is so firmly denied as to refuse any hope for it, the brain has the ability to divert to other pursuits. I love that law because sometimes God closes a door. But what's there saying? He opens a window. An Italian man said to me, No, he'll open too. Have you found that when I hurt my arm, something happened to me? I was in Warburton giving meetings like I have this week. And my right-hand man, he was the man that was with the chairs. He was doing the sound system running around. One arm, and it was his left arm, and he was about 63. And every time I looked around, there it was there. To do now? I said, I was 7 years old, and he said, and it was an accident down on the farm, and I got caught in an auger or something. He said, when I woke up in hospital the night after it had happened, or the morning after it had happened, he said, and I said, Nurse, write with my left hand. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. And happiness isn't things. It's not what's happening to you. It's a choice. It's a choice. Be happy about. Yeah. How the body can be stimulated to generate new brain cells and connections through simple yet powerful habits. High-intensity interval training, fasting, and continuous learning. Create an environment where the brain thrives. Depression dampens this natural growth, slowing down mental agility and paving the way for cognitive deterioration. But when we engage in challenging activities like learning a new language or memorizing scripture, we actively build new dendrites. These actions lay the groundwork for a resilient mind that stands strong against dementia. So when faced with adversity, and it's our deliberate choices that keep us not just surviving, but thriving. Today's deep dive into the natural, everyday practices that can combat dementia. As we've explored, depression can be a silent factor leading to cognitive decline. But through conscious efforts in nutrition, exercise, and mental habits, we can fortify our brains. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to empower you with life-changing health insights.